Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry I've been so MIA on here the last little while. In August, I went back to Canada to visit family and friends that I hadn't seen in over 2 years. And while I was able to do a lot of reading, it didn't really give me a lot of time to film and particularly edit videos either. So while I was reading a lot, I wasn't really making or uploading a lot of videos. So I apologize for that. Today I'm going to be doing a really rapid fire wrap up of all of the books that I read in the month of August. So some quick statistics to start off with. I read 13 books in August and I have 2 DNFs. Breakdown for genre, I had 6 fantasy, 6 romance, and 1 young adult contemporary, which is very outside of my usual. I'll start off with the DNFs, the first of which was The Wolf by Leo Carew. I was reading a few different things at this time, and I just found The Wolf to be rather slow and a little bit boring, and I put it down mostly because I was shifting to other things, or I was doing outdoor yard work and listening to audiobooks, and I just never picked it back up again. I have requested it again from the library, or I've taken it out from the library again. So while I would like to say that I will probably get back to this and I'm going to try, realistically, I know myself and I really doubt that I'll be picking this up again. Okay, then we'll get into the fantasy books. I'm just going to include both adult and young adult fantasy here, and I'll tell you which is which. So to start off with, I read The House of Always by Jen Lyons. This is the 4th book in the A Chorus of Dragons series. I've been talking about this series a lot, so I won't go into a ton of detail, and also it's the 4th book in a series, so I can't really say much about what was happening, but this series continues to be a really trippy play with time, I guess. Like every single book in this series, the way that it is set up is something funny with time is going on. Where this book maybe lost me a little bit is that it almost felt like it was being a little bit soapboxy about certain issues. And while I really value what this series has done with like gender norms and culture norms and mental health to some extent, this one just felt like it was a little bit too pushy or on the nose with all of those elements. But I was really satisfied with one particular storyline in like a throuple scenario that, I was quite pleased with, because I feel like it's been building over the course of this series and it kind of finally happened. I did like it, but it is not my favorite book in this series to date. So originally I did have the library book, like on an ebook that I was reading, but I was doing a lot of outdoor work at this time, and so I ended up listening to the audiobook on Scribd, and then my library book ran out, and so I actually just read, I think over 80% of the book I read listening to the audiobook, and the audio narrators for this series do an extremely good job with a few different voices. This is a rather complicated plot book though. I would not recommend listening to this at a high speed on audio. I could do like maybe 1.2 so that I could like really process everything that was happening and make it all fit together while I was listening. Okay, next I read The House and the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I got this book for my mom for Christmas just based on everything that I was hearing about it on BookTube, and so I made sure to borrow it from her when I was home. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to go into a lot of details because I think I would just say exactly what everyone else has said. The kids were adorable. The whole situation is adorable. It was so heartwarming. I really liked Lucy. I thought that whole thing was so cute. I also really liked, I want to say Talia, but I'm not sure. The gnome, the female gnome, she was also a favorite character. And then just basically every word that came out of the little blob, the one that wanted to be the bellhop, every single line that he had in that book was too perfect. And yeah, that book is so amazing. If you haven't read it and you just want a book that's gonna make you feel like happy, you should read that book. I also read Wings of Shadow by Nikki Powell Preto. This is the 3rd and final book in the Crown of Feathers trilogy. I could not get a hold of this book on all of my usual methods. So either of the 2 libraries that I have, it wasn't on Scribd. So I bought a physical copy of this. I don't have it here with me because I actually left it back home intentionally. Our bags were really, really full. We ended up picking up a few things while we were home, or like people gave us gifts, especially maple syrup, and I just could not fit it in my bag. So I made the decision to leave it with all of the other books that I was putting in storage or putting back into storage in order to give myself like just a little bit more weight and room. I thought this was a great conclusion to the end of this series, although I would say that it sort of suffered a little bit from what I would call like Throne of Glass syndrome, or like Kingdom of Ash, Empire Storm, whatever the last one is in that series, where at this point she's added in so many different perspectives. They're all relevant to the story. I just didn't always feel like we needed all of the different perspectives, because it made it an extremely, I think, longer book than it perhaps needed to be. The other Throne of Glass syndrome that I think it suffered from is that it did kind of go into that like everybody coupling up thing at the end. It's not like I didn't want all of these people to be together. I think Tristan and Veronica are one of my new like one true pairings. I think that they were amazing together. I think they had a really healthy friendship and a very respectful, healthy relationship. There was no teenage drama, which was really, really nice and refreshing. And so like I liked the other couples that also got together. Like, I don't want to say them all, but I liked all of them. I just maybe didn't necessarily need it to all be a feature of this final book. I think that the ending was maybe a little bit neat and tidy and perfect or idealized, but maybe not more so than one would expect out of a young adult fantasy in particular. Overall, I was really satisfied with this series though, and I'll definitely be looking out for more Nikki Palpretto books in the future. The next two books are part of the same series, and that is The Heart of Betrayal and The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson, which are the second and third books in the Remnant Chronicles, which is a young adult fantasy romance. I would maybe say like the romance is quite a pretty big plot line here. I am really glad that I picked this series back up again. I had read like a preview snippet of The Heart of Betrayal a while back after I finished the first book, The Kiss of Deception, and I was really worried about where the relationships were going. And then one of my subscribers, I think T-Books Magic, told me that she thought, based on some other comments in a different video I had been saying, that I would actually really like where this series and the romance went, and absolutely that was the case. So I am really, really glad that I picked it back up. I'm kind of struggling to remember like the distinction between the two books, because this was also early at the beginning of the month when I read them. But highlights for this series definitely is the main character Leah's personal growth over the course of the trilogy. In the first book, she is sort of like young and petulant and a little bit drama-filled and a little bit selfish, and that really, really changes over the course of the series. I feel like if I had read these books, maybe when they were originally coming out, I'm not sure on the dates, but if I had read these books at a younger age, I can totally see that these would have been like an all-time favorite series for me. So reading it at my age, like I value it, I really enjoyed it, but it maybe doesn't have the same place in my all-time heart or like favorite series that it would have if I had picked it up at a younger age. And then the last fantasy book that I read quite recently actually was The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. Whoa. Okay, a couple quick things about this book. It follows the main character, Angboda. I'm really uncertain on how to say her name, but Angboda, who was the first wife of Loki. And it kind of tells the story, or at least the lead up to Ragnarok, which is like the Norse god apocalypse, but it shows it from her perspective, which is maybe the bad side, I guess you could theoretically say, like in terms of like it's not on the side of Odin and Thor. But I didn't know a lot about this going into it. I didn't know where this book was going, except for that I was pretty sure it was going to be sad. And oh boy, was it. I was maybe not bawling, but like I was fully crying. This book was really weird in its like setup in that it wasn't broken down into chapters. It was broken down into 3 parts, and the 3 parts were not equal in any way, shape, or form. The first part was the majority of the book, the second part was a little bit more, and then the third part was like just a snippet, like almost the length of a regular chapter. That did make the reading experience a little bit weird because it was sort of hard to find places where you felt like there were good breaks that you could put it down. What I would say this book is actually about is motherhood. Like, it was very much so Ngboda's experience of being a mother and having that as sort of her primary goal and the primary responsibilities. It was definitely about her relationship with Loki, and there is also a sapphic relationship as well, but I would like the relationship with Loki had a lot more page time than the sapphic relationship did, but it was less about the romance and more about how that relationship impacted her being a mother and her thoughts about motherhood and her just like desires to protect and help her children. I did really, really enjoy this book. I don't think it's like an all-time favorite. It was quite sad and heartbreaking. I'm realizing that I forgot to say, I think with this one and the last one's how I read this. So this was an ebook on library through the Overdrive app, as was both The Heart of Betrayal and The Beauty of Darkness, if I didn't say that before. There is another book that I included on my anticipated releases videos called The Goddess of Nothing at All, and it follows the story of Sigyn, who is Loki's second wife. And I'm actually struggling even thinking about reading it now because of how Ngboda's and Loki's relationship was paralleled with Loki and Sigyn's relationship and the role that Sigyn plays in Ngboda's life in this story and how that was portrayed. I had to keep reminding myself that this isn't necessarily exactly what happened, and that it is the author's interpretation and imagining of how that would all break down. And I'm gonna really struggle, I think, reading The Goddess of Nothing at All, where the heroine or whatever, like the main character is Sigyn, who does some things from Ngboda's perspective that were really, really not great. So I think I'm gonna struggle with that, and I'm gonna have to keep reminding myself that this is, first off, that it's Norse mythology, and secondly, that it's author interpretation. Really quick, the YA contemporary that I read was Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. I thought this was really cute. The main character is running like a relationship advice column. Someone finds out that she is Locker 89, or that she's the face behind Locker 89, and he gets her to help him win back his girlfriend, but during this process they're spending a lot of time together. You know, a lot of the chapters started out with one of the letters and the responses that she was giving out, and it wasn't until about halfway through that I wondered if, you know, on one hand, suspend disbelief for a moment, you know, reader, in terms of like that this is a 16-year-old giving out this high quality advice, but I realized at a certain point that maybe it was the author's attempt to give advice to potential readers, of saying like, here are a few different possible situations that can occur in teenage romances and relationships, and here are some things to consider and think about. So if that is the case, I think that's like kind of a genius way to go about that. And now I'm wondering if maybe I wish that there also had been some in one of them, like, talk to a counselor, not just get help from a random helpline. But you know, that's me nitpicking. I don't read a lot of young adult contemporary, or like almost any. It's not really my thing, but this was a really nice check-in, or like touch base with what's going on sort of like in that genre right now. I thought this book was really cute, and I thought it had great messaging. Okay, well, that was my August. I did read a lot. I wish that I had have done like a midway through the month wrap up, which I was planning, but as I said, being at home just like really messed up my filming and editing schedule and plans. I also only talked about the fact that I had finally reached 200 subscribers in a vlog that then I ended up just scrapping because I didn't like how it came out. Actually, maybe you'll still see it. But anyway, this is, I think, like the first time that I'm acknowledging that I made it to 200 subscribers, I think early in August or right at the very end of July. So thank you so much to everyone who subscribes. It was a very, very cool, exciting milestone to reach. Anyway, that is it for me today. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye.